Welcome to the Imperfect Activist, a new podcast on the Be the Change Media Network.
The Imperfect Activist talks all things youth activism, advocacy, and change-making. We address some of the most pressing environmental and social issues while reconciling with the challenges that come with growing up and transitioning into adulthood.
We shed light and face head-on the hot takes of youth activism and climate organising that are uncomfortable to discuss. This podcast will be a brave space where uncomfortable truths are learned and tricky questions are debated.
Because to become stronger, more united and more efficient as a demographic, we need to figure out what real solidarity looks like before we move forward to confront other societal issues with the urgency that is needed.
The Imperfect Activist follows the belief that we don't need 100 perfect activists, but millions of imperfect ones. Famous words by youth activist and environmentalist Clover Hogan. Meet your hosts.
I'm Lucy.
I'm Annabelle.
I'm Natasha, and we're excited to talk all things activism and organising with you, chatting with young changemakers from across the globe.
We don't need 100 perfect activists, but millions of imperfect ones.
Young people, we're the future. We've got everything to fight for.
Hi friends, welcome back to the Imperfect Activist. It's Lucy here, and today's fifth episode is going to be a little bit different. I'm here solo, just me, having a very personal and honest conversation with you. And I'm going to be real with you from the start. This is not going to be a light episode, but it will be a hopeful one, I hope so. We're diving into mental health and the struggles we carry, the pressure we live under, and how our generation is trying to change the conversation around emotional wellness. Because I think mental health is an assigned note in our lives. It's central to everything we do, especially when we care about the world around us. So that's what this is, a heart-to-heart conversation, I feel, with myself and with you as well. So where am I coming from? I want to begin with a little bit about me and what's my background in terms of mental health. I'm from Belgium, as you know, and mental health there is still such a close conversation. You don't talk about it. There's this pressure to be okay, to move on, to not really dwell on things. And when I moved to the UK in 2023, it was like stepping into a different universe of like, wow, there's so much services for mental health, even if there needs a lot of improvement. But people here talk about counselling, about boundaries, about burnout, and it was just strange, but also incredibly freeing. I found counselling here. I've been on and off since I arrived in London 2 years ago. And honestly, it's been great to have this resurface. I think counselling gave me the language for things I was carrying in silence. It also gave me clarity, helped me let go of burdens that I didn't even realise I was holding for years. I definitely think without it, I don't think I could have stayed grounded through everything that came next when I moved to London and all the sort of barriers that I had. But yeah, because before I turned 25, and I'm 24 and a half at the moment, but I lost two friends and two people I liked. The first loss came during that huge transition between secondary school and university. And I was studying in Maastricht in the Netherlands at that time, but everything just felt wrong while I was studying there, and I just needed to go. So I left in the middle of my studies and I went to California to the loving family that I actually saw last week. They're moving back to the UK, but yeah, my move to California, that might sound dramatic, but honestly, it saved me from going down the spiral. I think it was an escape that came at the right time, and I needed it also. It gave me the space to breathe, to reset, to figure out what I actually wanted. And that was not studying international business. It was to work with children and young people to make an impact. So I studied international cooperation instead. Yeah, that was a tough time, but traveling saved me. Traveling was my passion, still is, and is still my biggest value and what I need to log off and on. So yeah, that was when I started really having a spark for travel. And then my second loss That happened right before I moved from Belgium to London to start my master's. I actually was at his funeral the day before I took the Eurostar to go to London. So it was not great timing, but it hit hard. But I knew myself better by then. I knew how to take care of myself. I didn't make the same mistakes as I did 5 years before. I took space. I grieved. I didn't ignore it, and that's growth in itself. So I'm really proud of myself doing that and allowing me to have that space. On top of that, I lost two of my grandparents while being abroad. One just before Christmas last year, which was quite hard because everyone's happy family time and everything. And my family was not happy whatsoever, of course, but it was hard being far away from them just before Christmas, and they came for Christmas. And then my grandma's funeral was on the 31st of December, which was not the greatest of dates, but in a way, I felt looking back at it, it was probably one of the best decisions. So I could just start the new year on a good note and leave it behind. I still had bereavement counselling after that, and that helped me a lot. But yeah, for both of my grandparents, I couldn't attend their funerals. It's a unique kind of grief because I'm far away, especially for my grandpa. I was in Nepal, so I was completely on the other side of the world. But the guilt mixes with the sadness, and you carry that weight differently. You put more pressure on yourself to actually, I need to go, but sometimes you can't go, and that's okay. So yeah, I think on the next subject I would like to talk about is pressure actually, because it's real. Our generation is expected to do it all, perform academically, keep up on social media, stay politically engaged, look good, stay strong, care about every issue, and somehow still be mentally stable. And I just find it so unrealistic, if I'm honest. There's pressure to succeed in your studies, but also to already know your career path by the time you're 20. Everyone has a different career path, everyone has a different idea, and that's totally okay. There's also pressure to be in the right relationship, to have a clean aesthetic feed, but also to be outspoken but never offensive, to hustle but also to be chill. And I find it very exhausting, and it's just a vicious circle if you go through that. But also, let's not forget, like in the previous episode, we talked about the financial pressure. With the cost of living rising, rent becoming unaffordable, and job insecurity increasing, especially for young people, it's no wonder so many of us feel like we're living in constant survival mode. We're supposed to build a future on a foundation that often feels unstable in itself, especially with government decisions. Also, if you're someone who cares deeply, the world doesn't feel safe or fair a lot of the time. And for young activists, for those of us doing this work, I think it's a double burden. We want to make things better, but we're often burning out trying because while we're adapting or advocating for others, it can be so easy to forget to care for ourselves first. And we carry other people's trauma, hopes, fears, and it sits on top of our own. I've personally had moments where I felt like I was letting everyone down by resting, but here's the truth, we're not machines, we're humans. I think the expectation to be everything, everywhere, all at once is not only unfair, it's harmful in the long term. I've been there caring more about others and trying to fix issues for them, to not be affected by them. But the reality is you can help as much as you want, but the first you need to help is yourself, and carry that to someone else and to your passion and your activism, and making sure you're okay first before actually helping the situation or helping a person or helping your advocacy. Yeah, you need to think about yourself sometimes in those situations. And I don't think it's being egocentric. I also think you also need that alone time for you to develop, for you to grow, for you to have a think, to reflect on things in order to not have all those pressures come to you. But also maybe if you want to help someone else, then it's easier in a way. One subject that I would also like to talk about is youth loneliness. It came through my work because one of the eyewear ambassadors I work for I work with, is a really big advocate in youth loneliness. And I didn't look into that subject at first, but now I know why this is so important. I think it's a quiet epidemic. I've looked into stats, but according to recent UK stats, 70% of 18 to 24 years old say they feel lonely at least sometimes. And in London specifically, youth loneliness is even higher. A third of young people here say they feel lonely often or always. I think this isn't just about being physically alone. You can be surrounded by people and still feel completely unseen, and I think you can have hundreds of online followers and still have no one to talk to at the end of the day. Yeah, social media gives us highlights, but hides the real stuff, I feel. You scroll through someone's feed and think, why is their life perfect? When really, they're struggling too, maybe. They just don't post it because that's not glamorous, and I think we should post more things on social media that are less glamorous, that are actual real life lived experiences. We've created a culture where sharing joy is encouraged, but sharing pain is seen as weakness or maybe sometimes oversharing. I think we're definitely more connected than ever, but also more isolated. We message more, but talk less. Some people can't have a proper conversation since COVID, and you can see the impact on COVID on young people and children. Um, they're just on their screens, and that's sad, and that fills the tank for youth loneliness. But we watch each other's lives through screens instead of asking, how are you really? Like, what are you feeling? What's going on in your life? Just go and grab a coffee with them or something like that. You need to do that. And I think also loneliness isn't just an emotional feeling. It has real health consequences. I think studies have shown that chronic loneliness can be damaging to your health as smoking 15 cigarettes a day. And that's huge when you think about it. I remember when I moved to London, I didn't know a lot of people. I felt a bit lonely at first, but then I met some amazing friends through uni and through my master's degree. And that was like really great for me. But at the same time, I was like, I want to make friends outside of uni as well. And I found this group which I love, the events they're doing. And the founder, I think she's called Sophie, but she does a lot of work on youth loneliness, but especially for girls in big cities. And the group I joined was called the London Lonely Girls Club. And we're like more than 50,000, I think, on that group. But you can see that loads of girls are lonely in big cities. They branch to like Newcastle, Birmingham, I think, Northampton or Nottingham, I think. And they have one in Brighton now, but they do loads of events for girls to meet each other outside of work, to have a discussion with each other. And I think we should have that way more in our lives. We need to talk to each other more, not in comments, not in DMs, like really talk. Call your friend, go for a walk, start a conversation with a stranger on the bus. I've done that before. Ask the hard questions, I feel like sit with someone in their sadness and make time for the people in your life that you love and you care about. Because healing doesn't always happen in counseling rooms. Sometimes it starts with a coffee with a friend and a late night phone call, a quiet, I'm here for you. And that's how we fight loneliness, with presence, with love, and with listening as well. So, yeah, I think I want to pause here and talk um, something that too often gets left out of these conversations, but where to turn when you're struggling. Because saying go get help only works if people know where to start with. So one of the best starting points is Young Minds. They offer free practical advice for young people, from understanding anxiety to navigating grief, to setting boundaries with family or school. And what I like about them is how real and youth-focused their work is. They have a text line too, so you can text YM to 85258 for urgent support on 24/7, and this is a free service. Another great charity is Mind. They support all age groups and offer info on like therapy types, local services, and how to advocate for yourself in the healthcare system. Their website has free downloadable guides and self-help tools. If you're in London or other major UK cities, you might also have access to community wellbeing hubs. These are local centres that offer drop-in counselling or support groups, and sometimes even art therapy or mindfulness wellbeing classes. I think just check your borough's website, because I definitely did that, and that's how I found free counselling through the community hubs that was in my borough. There's also the Mix, that's a tailored for under 25, I think. They offer free confidential helpline, plus one-to-one chats. I think also group forums and a whole digital hub of advice and real life stories. So yeah, and beyond their service, their practices, I think for me, one thing that helps is personal development and wellbeing podcasts. I absolutely adore Ali Archdeacon and Riley May on the Self-Care Method podcast. They make self-growth feel human. They talk about grief, goals, boundaries, and burnout, but in a way that pressures you to fix yourself, but also in a way that gently reminds you that healing is possible and you don't have to hustle for your worth. I think another tool which I like is journaling. It sounds a cliche, but even 10 minutes a day, just writing what you feel, what you need, what's heavy, can make such a huge difference. You don't have to be a writer. I think you just have to be honest when you write it. I don't particularly write about my day. I will write in my journal like quotes, or I don't know, something I saw maybe on social media, and I'm like, oh, that's exactly how I feel. And I just copy those quotes. And so each month, roughly, I've got like a quote for each month of how I'm feeling on that day. And that's how I use journaling. And I find it really therapeutic. And I do actually love it and take that space for me. And finally, I think don't underestimate the power of peer support groups. Whether it's a grief circle, university mental health society, or an online group like those on Together All, being with people who get it can remind you that you're not weird, broken, or weak. You're just a normal human being. Talking about like counselling, I think this is not a weakness whatsoever. It's not indulgent, it's survival. I wish more people knew that. I think in my darkest moments, what helped me wasn't pretending to be strong. It was sitting across from someone and saying, I'm not okay. And having to say, that's okay, let's start there. And like deconstruct it. I think that moment changed everything for me, that act of speaking what hurt, of naming what scared me. And that's when healing started, but also to let go from the past and things that maybe I had hold on to unconsciously. And that was quite relieved, I think, when I had those counselling sessions. I think grief doesn't come with a map. It hits when it wants. It lingers in unexpected ways, but sometimes it feels sharp, other times dull, but it comes back in ways because you never know when it's going to happen. But you sometimes you feel like you're more prepared than before because you know how you think. I think whether it's the loss of a loved one or a friendship, a dream, or even your sense of self, like grief is grief. And none of it makes you weak. It means you loved. It means you cared, especially. And resilience isn't about bouncing back instantly. I think it's about choosing to keep going even when your heart is heavy. I think counseling taught me that, and it gave me tools, but more than anything, gave me permission to be gentle with myself and have maybe more resilience and thanking more myself, and like, I've done this and that's okay, and I've done that and I should be proud of that. Or look how far you've come, Lucy, from this small industrial town in Belgium to living in London, the big city, in a job that I like, working with the young people I do. I would have never thought that when I was a little girl, I think. But yeah, if you've lost someone or something, I think take your time. You don't have to have it all. figure it out. You don't need to be okay by anyone else's timeline. Just keep showing up for yourself in small way. And I think that's enough. Go with the flow, go as you go, but try and unlock that door when you're ready to unlock that door. Don't put pressure on yourself again to unlock that door if you're not prepared to talk about it, but be prepared to talk about it once you unlock it. And I think, yeah, if you need time, that's totally fine. The last subject I would like to talk about is burnout and boundaries. I think in activism, burnout is so real and so a common topic. I think it doesn't just hit you all at once, it creeps in. That's how I feel. It builds over time until suddenly you realize you're exhausted, you're snapping at people, you're losing your spot, you don't know why you're here, you're asking multiple questions and maybe even resenting the work you love. That's where I was just a few weeks ago, last month. I was close to burnout, to abandon everything. And I work somewhere I love, where I get to help young people thrive and give them opportunities for their voices to be heard on a national, regional, and community level. But even in a job with purpose, I found myself at boiling point. I wasn't sleeping properly. I felt drained, foggy, like I was constantly rushing from one thing to the next without any real pause. I feel like to describe it the most, it's like you're a robot and you don't even think about yourself because you don't even have time to think about yourself. So I took a week off, and for the first time in my life, I took sick leave. I've never done that before, so I didn't even know how the system worked. I didn't know I could have 1 week of sick leave without any medical subscription, or going to my doctors or my GP. So everyone was like trying to explain it to me, and I was like, do I really have sick leave? Like, is that allowed? But then I thought to myself, no, I didn't feel guilty. I was like, I needed it. And also, the truth is, work can wait. My mental health, my well-being, and me, those things can't. And those are the most important things. And that week off wasn't selfish, it was essential for my mental health. It was Lucy's week. That's how I said to myself, Lucy's week. I'm going to do what I want to do and what I need to recharge. I remember one of my head of department said it's like a bucket and there's loads of holes. All the holes are what you need to refill so your bucket slowly goes down, because at that point I had no holes in my bucket and my bucket was overflowing completely. And I did like that metaphor. Or like someone said to me, again, one of my heads at work said, it's like a mosquito bite. The more you have mosquito bites, the more itchy it is, which is a fair metaphor about what I was going through at the time. So yeah, I spent that time doing things that filled me up again, like yoga in the morning, journaling in the evenings, long walks where I didn't rush because I love walking. I let myself breathe. I ask questions like, where's my future heading? What am I passionate about right now? Who is Lucy when she isn't performing or producing or achieving or going to events and running away to go to events and opportunities? But also, what do I really fight for and how do I do that without breaking myself? I think it let me tell you that pause changed something in me. It reminded me that rest is not just recovery. I think it's a radical act of resistance. I think in a world that tells us to keep grinding, to stay on, to be available 24/7, choosing to stop is powerful and you actually need it. I think you don't have to post about every cause. You don't have to be online all the time. You don't have to be productive every hour of every day. Saying no is a form of self-care, and taking a break is activism too, because you need that break. And I feel now more and more young people are taking those breaks for their mental health, and I applaud that completely. But something else that matters just as much as self-care is community care. We need to look after each other. Sometimes that means asking a friend if they've eaten today. Sometimes it means saying, hey, you don't have to carry all this alone. I can help you. or letting someone hold space for you. You need to protect your peace and your well-being. I think set boundaries, like your life depends on it, because sometimes it does. And that's what I've learned the hard way through my work. I need boundaries, or if I don't, then I'll go and burn out. And I know it. So I think my remember quote is rest is not luxury, it's a human right. And I think, yeah, you should definitely have rest when you needed it. And especially if you feel like you're close to burnout, take a pause, take a break, breathe. What's the best decision you can take? Can you take sick leave? Then take sick leave. If you can take a holiday off, then go on a holiday because you need it. You know yourself better. You know your body. You know your mind. You know how to work things. So please do it. I think as we close today's episode, which was a bit different than the rest, I think I want to leave you with a few questions to reflect on. What does well-being mean to you? Where can you create more space to rest, to grieve, to grow, to reflect? And who can you reach out to today and say, I'm here, you matter, how are you? It's been a long time, but I still think of you. I think well-being isn't a destination, it's a daily practice that everyone should have in their lives. And some days that practice is messy, some days it's quiet, some days it's just getting out of bed and drinking water, and that counts as well. Be kind on yourself. We need each other. We need less perfection and more presence, not just physical, but mental presence as well. I think we need less scrolling, more conversations, more in-depth conversation. We need to remind ourselves and each other that we are enough, even on the messy days, especially on the messy days. You don't have to carry everything alone. You don't need to be everything to everyone. You're allowed to be tired. You're allowed to rest. You're allowed to need help. So, wherever you are, whatever you're carrying, please remember this. You are not broken. You are human and you are worthy of care. And finally, a little notch to my favorite podcast called The Self-Care Method. I really recommend to go and listen to it. But they always, both Ali and Riley, always end their podcast with a self-care note of the week. And so I'm going to end my podcast with this as well. And mine would be, you don't have to earn rest, but you deserve to exist gently, even when the world feels loud. So thank you for sharing this space with me. And I'm sending love to all of you who are carrying something heavy today or from the past. I think you're definitely not alone. You are never alone. And please have conversations with people or even contact counselling or go for a walk or grab a coffee, whatever. But yeah, until next time, take care of yourself and each other. Bye.